Welcome to another Wisdom podcast. Today we have Roddy Boyd with us. He is editor and founder at Foundation for Financial Journalism. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics here, which is investigative journalism. I think this is somewhat cool because it gives me like a portal into businesses that normally are so secretive. And yeah, these journalists, they take a lot of risks. There's good ways to do it. There's bad ways to do it. We're going to talk about that with Rody today. Before we do, this podcast is brought to you by podfyre.com. If you want to start, scale, be invited to a podcast like this one, or even find sponsors, Podfyre is my podcast agency. You can go to podfyre.com for that. Roddy, welcome to the pod. Can you tell me a bit more about yourself and about the Foundation for Financial Journalism?
Charles, thanks for having me out. Really, we're on. It really means a lot. The foundation, well, I'm a journalist. I'm an investigative reporter. That's one of those titles that, a lot of people might claim it. I think at the end of the day, not as many people actually do it. That's just one man's opinion. What an investigative reporter does is they dive a lot deeper into a story, any story. It could be something as local as school construction, or it could be matters of national security, life, death, war, and peace. What I do is I primarily look at publicly traded companies. Most of the time, about 90% of my work is there. Sometimes I'll look at hedge funds or investment pools like them. But in the main, I look at publicly traded companies, so they're larger, and I use public filings. In other words, they're Securities and Exchange Commission quarterly and annual disclosures and reports, as well as, if you're reporting on something, let's say in Canada, might be using SEDAR or CEDAR documents. In other nations have their own repositories of public information, and I use that as I like to use the phrase a springboard. I then use that. I try and find lawsuits, or I jump on LinkedIn, or I make phone calls and find out from people working at the company or recently departed what's going on. And particularly my focus is situations where the company is disclosing much less than they really should be. A friend of mine, a famous reporter named Bethany McLean, says it's covering business gone bad, and that's what I do.
And Bethany McLean rings a big bell for me. I think if I dig my brain here, she's the author of various Wall Street books, right?
Oh, famous. I mean, she's a former colleague of mine at Fortune magazine. I would. I don't like to speak for anybody, but I'm very confident that she would say that she is most well known for a documentary and a book she co-wrote called The Smartest Guys in the Room.
Enron, yeah.
It's about the collapse of Enron.
Yeah, that was did I read that one? I mean, I covered the scandal plenty of times. I'd love getting the wiki first of these big failures, because Enron was this gigantic company. It was sort of a black box, it was too complex for even humans to run themselves. I also see the big fail here. I see Saudi America. I need to read that one. All the Devils Are Here. I love these books, like I told you, because I'm looking for a bio about either someone or a company, right? As a business owner, to get information of what not to do and what to do. And sometimes and most of the time, actually, the only resource that we have, us as entrepreneurs, to get the information are these books. A good couple that I've read in the last couple of years, and I don't take everything for granted in these articles, because some of these journalists, sometimes they want to make a big splash, right? They're financially incentivized to do so, although they do have some code of honor, if you will, deontology. But I've read, what was it? The $1 billion loser, the big whale one. Do you remember that one?
Yes, sure. I
Billion
know
dollar
Bill
whale.
Gates.
Yeah, the what's his name? Jolo. Oh my God, that one was. I mean, this guy.
That's about the Malaysian, I believe,
Yeah, one
one
MDB.
MDB one scam, MB1 scam, I believe, in
Yeah,
Malaysia.
yeah,
That's a fantastic Joe Low, and
yeah. That was very good. And
remarkable story.
the guy's still running from the law, which is really surprising. He's in his yacht in China or something, and
I believe.
Just yesterday I was speaking. I was thinking about that, like when you scam people and when you go for a quick win. Let's say that I can make $10 million tomorrow if I do this Y scam. Like how would I feel running the rest of my life from the law? You've had your bouts with that, so how do these people feel once they've committed that fraud or crime?
Sure. To your point, to explain to your listeners, like many reporters, I have written stories that, or articles, I think is the better word, that have at some level prompted securities regulatory action, or legal action, or law enforcement action, enforcement action, and people get fired or fined or depart very rapidly. In a number of stories I've written, they've gone to jail. And so I've spoken with them afterwards. I would say there's two kind of conditions that are present in all of these circumstances. Now, this guy we're talking about, Joe Low, that's a different kettle of fish, good sir. I mean, I'm like you. I'm waiting for the movie to be made about this because it deserves it.
He funded the Wolf of Wall Street, by the way.
I mean, poker tournaments. He was dating one of the most beautiful women on earth, I believe, Miranda Kerr, fitness model. I mean, and he's just a schlump. But to your point, there are two preconditions that are almost always present in the men and occasionally women, as we saw in the Theranos scandal. One is a system of incentives that makes it worthwhile. In other words, if you can make $1 million or $2 doing a transaction or conducting business a certain way, by the books or mostly by the law, but if you bend at the edges, you'll make 10 million. Well, there's a lot of people are going to bend, and they'll go up to they'll bet they can do the things that will bring in 10 million a year. Just for instance, there is another kind of person, however, that goes much, much farther. So when those systems of incentives are there to have remarkable economic reward.
Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX.
I mean, that's a great example. So when the billions of dollars are there, I think the current and long-standing historical record suggests there is a kind of person who will do everything they can to get there. So that's one. One is incentives. The famous investor, Charlie Munger, says, show me the incentive, I'll show you the crime. So keep that in mind. The second thing is a much more difficult thing to quantify. And you need a lot of time around the person, a lot of documents, oftentimes court depositions and transcripts where they're finally compelled to speak. That is, I think you need a certain kind of mental or emotional trouble And what I'm a reporter. I am not a clinician. I am not a doctor, but it's very clear that in the circumstances where I've reported on people that has eventually led to them going to jail, they have an element of sociopathy, excuse me. That means they don't really even think of consequences, particularly as it pertains to others. Because let's face it, if you're an executive at a big firm, or you run your own hedge fund, or you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder, your law breaking will ultimately not only cost you a great deal, up through their liberty, it costs everybody around them. I mean, presumably, SBF's Sam Bankman-Fried's company, FTX, if it had been managed professionally and properly, it would still be around today in some fashion, even though crypto's collapse. And presumably, SBF would be worth many millions, maybe not 6 billion, but he would be worth 10 million, 20 million. But instead he did what now it looks like, again, it's all allegations now, but it looks like he's guilty as sin and is going to go to jail for a great long time. But it cost hundreds of people around him their jobs. Any number of his co-founders were sucked into this, and
investors.
Yeah,
clients,
it's just
the arenas that
yeah.
lended their name, like FTX, to them. I think it was the Miami
Heat.
arena.
Yeah,
it's just terrible, the damage he did.
Yeah, so the effects of this are so long-standing that most people would be like, it's not worth it. Even if they're a bad guy, they'll be like, it's just not worth it. But there's the kind of guy who is incentivized to go beyond. And then two, they often have some sort of very difficult to perceive, at some level, mental, emotional disturbance.
Yeah, mania. I would call it mania. They're like,
Fair enough.
Clearly manic behavior. SBF, there's good points, like always in these situations, but I would picture it as a 10-time surfer or 20-time surfer attempting to surf a wave at Nazaré in Portugal. You know, these 20-meter waves? Well, he got wiped the fuck out,
and he tries one that's 100 feet tall,
Yeah. Then the guy won't recover. I cannot see a guy like this recovering, we've seen, I'm not sure if you followed the Fyre one, the Fyre festival. Billy McFarland, the guy seemed to have recovered, he I think he spent like 6 or 8 months in jail. I almost had it on this podcast before I knew that he was looking for a couple of thousands of dollars, and that his assistant was like not super professional and so forth. But the guy is sort of recovering right now. I'm not sure if you've heard, but he's going for round 2 for the Fyre Festival, which looks pretty silly. But yeah, to his credit, the guy has some hustle.
Well, look, whether you're talking about Tom Brady, the famous American football player, Lionel Messi, the famous footballer, or any entrepreneur, all people who obtain what we understand now as greatness, they have a certain emotional bravery. They are not afraid to be told repeatedly, no, and you're not good enough, or you're too small, you're too slow, whatever. And most of them are mentally strong and morally correct enough to obtain some level of success despite that. Then there is what you are describing, which is just pure, it sounds to me, insanity, which is he caused an absurd disaster, albeit, look, it was just a music festival. No one, there weren't people dead or anything like that. But yeah, that he has in his mind and around him people who are like, look, you need to do this again, and I'm like, oh my Lord, what can you say?
Maybe try something else. And the guy, what was interesting in that story is that he got sued by his investors, so they actually brought him to jail, not the clients, not anyone else. I have two important questions I want to ask you in those last 5 minutes, though. Not sure if you followed the new biography of Walter Isaacson, which I just bought yesterday. Gonna listen while making the ultra workout I have planned for me today. But I wanted to comment on that. Walter, I've listened to a couple of his interviews and his book tour / book promotion.
Talking about Elon Musk biography.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Walter Isaacson, the same guy that wrote Steve Jobs' book,
I worked
Einstein.
for him.
Okay, there you go. He said that Elon granted him full access to his life, and Elon was sometimes raging, firing on employees on the spot. And Elon is really bipolar, because suffered some. I mean, the because is interesting, right? There always need to be a reason in psychology, but his dad sort of was really rough with him. He got bullied and so forth. If, let's say that I would hire you for a biography of mine, what would you? And it would be kind of boring because I don't have employees. Everything is online. I used to manage 1,000 employees, but would you accept that? How much would you charge me? And what would you expect? Would you expect that I give you like carte blanche and you do whatever you want and or would you accept like me telling, I might not let you hear that conversation there?
It's a great question. I've never been asked it, and I don't think I'll ever be asked again. So congrats. So a proper biographer has to have as much access to the individual they're writing about as is humanly possible. So what's that mean? So if you're writing a credible biography of Barack Obama, the former US president, that means you would have access to his presidential papers. He would speak to his insiders and the people around him. And talk to this guy, Roddy Boyd. And then I would interview him. I would spend weeks at a time with him, really get, how does he see things? Now that all the yelling is over, what did he really think about X, Y, or Z? Okay. You need that. It's incredibly intense experience, a proper biography. Okay. Now, Walter Isaacson, I've read several of his books. He is a brilliant writer, and he is a credible journalist, slash, I guess at some level, a historian now. And he deeply, deeply immerses himself in the subject. So, yes, I would require of anybody, you or anybody I was writing a biography of, as near total access as possible. Now that comes with responsibility, okay? That if I am with you and you have granted me this access, I don't, you'll forgive the phrase, I don't take cheap shots. So if you're having a bad day, that I don't, okay, well, Charles Premier, he was very short with the person at Starbucks that day or something like that. You have to understand the person we're all humans, okay? One example is, after work or something, if you're having a drink and you burp or fart or, whatever, look, people do that. That if I'm staying over at your house and you're in the bedroom with your wife or a girlfriend or partner or boyfriend, that I don't, of course, that's what adults do. That's what people do. You have to understand the person as a totality. Now, what Isaacson has appeared to do is he has not only written about a guy that in the moment that has just continued to grow and grow and grow in economic and cultural importance, and now national security stuff we're hearing. So he was incredibly lucky with that, but he really reported on who Elon Musk is. And you know, by the way, it's all the details are always surprising, but I don't think you or another intelligent listener of yours thinks for a second that Elon Musk is truly emotionally stable and that he isn't a workaholic, that he isn't self-obsessed to an indulgent. I mean, think about his, I mean, if I understand it correctly, he has 9 or 10 kids by approximately 7 or 8 women, at least one who was working very closely with him while he was in a formal partnership with another one. Now, I'm not here to blow the whistle on sexual hijinks. I'm simply saying that that kind of person is exactly who I thought Elon Musk is. And what makes that, the reason I'm going to go download that damn thing today, I'd forgotten to do it, is that Elon Musk, for all his talents, there's a lot of things he doesn't know. Because he's been rich, people around him are like, oh, hell yeah. As long as you work hard and dream big and have money, you're right. And you know what? That's total BS. That's not how any of this works. And it looks like Twitter is going to be his bridge too far, to use another biography of a battle.
One quick comment here.
Yeah.
So Walter Isaacson talked about Steve Jobs' field of distortion, and I want to quickly comment. My brain just made an insight while listening to you, which is that field of distortion for people that have a lot of money, fame, and power is exactly this. It's not that you bend the laws of physics, is that humans, from knowing you, become fucking yes men around you. That's their field of distortion. It's not that they're geniuses or that they can come. I mean, Steve Jobs was intelligent in many things, product and sort of being an asshole to get his point across and many other things. But I think that's the field of distortion, is that when these people walk in a room, they're so imposing with their past momentum that everyone is like, oh yeah, maybe he's right. But they're just like, they're crazy. I'm crazy too, by the way. So this is not hitting on Elon Musk or anything. Last question, in less than 2 minutes. AI could, in my case, right? Like if you do a bio about me, I just like, there's an app called rewind.ai and it films everything on my computer, even the stuff that I type, you know. Could I just ask an AI to film all my activities for 30 days and write a bio about me? That would be quite futuristic. And in your work, in your current investigative methods, could you just prompt an AI to go look at all the websites you mentioned here, the public document, CEDAR Plus, and all of that? Could you prompt an AI to, hey, I need very privileged information about this person? And then the AI would go fetch all that info and bring it back to you?
It's in the first example you gave, Charles, what I understand of what you described, rewind.ai, as I understand it, that would be, if you had a biographer, that would be a remarkable tool, because you would be like, oh, I don't remember, you know, what I sent in that email, or I deleted it or whatever. And if I had that tool, I would, you know, I mean, geez, what a pain in the ass to go spooning through hundreds of hours of this crap. But yes, presumably it's a tool for future biographers might have. And two, no. At the end, great journalism requires almost what I call a safecracker's touch, which is sometimes you're not looking for something that's there, it's what's not there. And or it's, you know, if a company says, oh, we don't loan money to people who are poor credits, quote unquote subprime, but then you look in their documents and it says we loan money to people who are quasi-prime or para-prime or adjacent to prime. You know, boy, I wonder what, you know what I'm saying? So for as much as AI holds tremendous risks and opportunity for us, look, at the end of the day, humans are still going, we're social animals, fascinated by each other. We want all good journalism is a human story. I always argue all journalism is about money, because I think nothing motivates us. People say, oh, people will do anything for love or sex or money. That's nonsense. Love and sex, please. Money, yes. And so I don't see the human element coming out of it anytime soon.
Right, and buying sex with money afterwards. Money is like energy, right? It's like it's everything in the cap. I mean, not everything. It's probably 80% of this living experience on this planet Earth in this capitalist system. That's why people that don't like money, well, they're not invited to my podcast. Like, what are you trying to reinvent capitalism? And in my opinion,
They're lying. Lying.
If you want to reinvent capitalism, you need to crack it. You need to become like some kind of trillionaire and be like, okay, guys, we're stopping that, and that's for another day. Roddy, can you tell us a bit more where to find yourself and where to find you online?
Sure. You can find my journalism at ffj-online.org. And you can find my Twitter handle is ffj underscore I believe report. And please read. I'm very proud of the work I did there, and I think it's very meaningful. It brought, the word I use is accountability. It brought a lot of accountability.
That's important in today's world, like it's one of my top values. If people say something and don't do it, then this whole system of trust falls apart, right? And if that falls apart, society falls apart, and we cannot progress as a race. So, Roddy, thank you for that. I'll save a couple of your articles there. We'll also do a round 2 in 2024 to talk about more of these scandals that always take my attention.
Yeah.
My name is Charles Cormier. I am founder at CEOWisdomPodcast.com or founderwisdompodcast.com. You can find us there. If you want to start, scale, be invited to podcast, go to podfire.com. That was Roddy Boyd.